You're listening to the 194th edition of the Bitachon podcast, and we are continuing in perek Ayin Ches of Tehillim. Last week we read passuk Zayin, and now we're going to read passuk Chav Beis. And this chapter, as we mentioned last week, is a long chapter which speaks about Am Yisrael and their time in Mitzrayim, in Egypt, and their time throughout the wilderness, and the challenges that they had in their relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, with Hashem, and in their bitachon, in their faith. The passuk says in chapter 78, verse 22, Ki lo yeminu b'Elokim. Am Yisrael had terrible troubles. They did not deserve to be helped. They did not deserve to be saved. They didn't believe in Hashem. Levatchu b'Yeshuasai. And they didn't trust in Hashem's salvation. And as we're going to see in the last of the misfortune that he brings here, so what happened was that Am Yisrael, before they didn't believe, so they deserved to experience fire. The passuk right before this says this. They deserved to experience fire, destruction. They didn't fully believe in Hashem, but then Hashem did provide for them in the Midbar. He gave them the man. He gave them the miraculous manna, which sustained them throughout the 40 years in the Midbar. He gave them the water. Miraculous way of existing. Excuse me. Rav Ramban Ramach says, Ki lo yeminu hu tam ha'achron hanizkar. They didn't believe. This is the last explanation of that which we mentioned. Passuk le'el lechein shoma Hashem es aber ve'esh nishke v'yakiv gam afal of Israel. This is explaining why the Jewish people deserved to have God's wrath brought out upon them, because they didn't believe. They didn't trust in Hashem. Right? And this is all of our challenge. We have trouble believing that Hashem is going to provide for us every single day all of our needs. In fact, I would say, and as we'll see in the Meforshim as it continues, one of the excuses people make why they don't want to move to Eretz Yisrael, they don't want to live in Israel, is because it's difficult to get parnasa, to have livelihood, sustenance. But this is a classic problem. This is a problem no matter where we are. And the fact that we didn't trust in Hashem, that Hashem would provide for us, despite the fact that the next passuk is going to say that Hashem indeed provided for us the man every single day, but when we don't believe that, we get in trouble. And it's amazing because Am Yisrael just experienced the Exodus, as we're reading about in the Parsha right now. They experienced the Exodus. They saw Hashem's incredible miracles for them. Hashem can take them out with an outstretched hand. Do you not think that He can provide for you while you're out there in the Midbar, in the wilderness? It was an incredible challenge for Am Yisrael to believe it. But Hashem had promised them they're going to be a separate and special nation, unlike any other nation. And that Hashem will save us if we go in the ways of the Torah. Am Yisrael receives the Torah. We receive on Har Sinai and Mount Sinai the incredible 613 mitzvahs that we're supposed to keep and we're supposed to fulfill. That's what our relationship with Hashem looks like. But if Hashem gives us the Torah is our guidebook for how we're supposed to live our lives. If we fulfill that, Hashem promises us He's going to take care of us. As the pasuk says, Hashem says, you're going to be a treasured nation. You're going to be a special nation, unlike anyone else. Maybe everyone else has to fend for themselves. But if you keep the Torah, if you follow the mitzvahs, if you are involved in a relationship with me, I'm going to take care of you. That's the promise. Says the Radak, Ki lo yeminu sheyuchal lechnisum la'aretz. There was an issue here. Am Yisrael had a lack of belief that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even though He took us out of Egypt, but who says that He can bring us into Israel? Maybe we won't succeed in Israel. Maybe we won't have our needs met when we go in there. And they didn't trust in Hashem's salvation. The fact was that we already saw that Hashem had saved us and taken care of us a number of times already. But still we had a hard time holding on to that belief and believing that it would continue. And I would say this is a standard issue that we all have. Well, Hashem might have helped me before, but who says it's going to continue? Previously, we spoke about the fact that we need to remind ourselves of the times that Hashem took care of us, to remind ourselves that when we have bitachon, it works. But still, in the face of all the times that we have experienced that Hashem is taking care of us, we still don't believe it all the way. We still are challenged, saying, maybe I don't deserve it anymore. That's the problem that Am Yisrael faced. Says the Noira Tehillah, because the salvation that Hashem already did for them, to save them from all of the natural issues that could come along while they were in the wilderness, maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu can save me from this problem, from a natural issue. But how do I know that the next challenge that I'm going to face is not going to be different? There was a lack of belief that Hashem has all the power that's possible in order to give us what we need. Either because He lacks it, or maybe we're not deserving of it. That was the issue. Says the Malbim, Ki lo yaminu b'Elokim. They didn't believe in God, says the Malbim. They thought that Hashem is limited, that Hashem doesn't have all of the power, all of the abilities. Therefore, they didn't trust in Hashem's salvation. They were unsure if they would be able to enter into the land of Israel and to succeed in overcoming their enemies, overcoming those who were there, and be able to withstand them. And I would add, and this is again something that we face right now, all the time. It doesn't say this here in the Malbim, but as I'm reading it, I'm thinking that Am Yisrael has somebody leading them. They have a Moshe Rabbeinu. And the challenge is, maybe it's him. Maybe it's his power. Maybe it's his bitachon even. What happens when Moshe is not there for 40 days and 40 nights? Am Yisrael gets nervous. They build an egel. They say, this is instead of Moshe. He's not here to lead us, so we'll have something else lead us. We need something. We can't do it ourselves. That's what Am Yisrael feels. There's a mistake that Am Yisrael makes. We make this mistake till today. If we don't have this guy to help us, how can we do it? We forget that it's Hashem who's behind the guy who's doing it. If Trump is not in office, who's going to protect us from the anti-Semitic mobs in the universities? That's the kind of thinking that we have. That's the mistake that we made, and we make. And if you listen back to what I said a few years ago when Trump was not reelected in the previous elections, so one of the things that I spoke out was that Kadosh Baruch Hu wants us not to depend on Him. And Am Yisrael makes this mistake. Maybe it's only Moshe. Maybe it's not us. Maybe we can't always rely on Hashem. He helped us until now, but what happens when we get into Eretz Yisrael and Moshe is gone? How are we going to do it there? Maybe Yoshua is not as great as Moshe Rabbeinu. He brings here from the Beirei Hamidus L'Bal HaKedah. Hinei af gam zeis yadua. This is also known. Ki kol taluchas b'nei Yisrael b'midbar hagolav hanera'u. That the entire march of Am Yisrael through the wilderness in that time, in that huge, awesome, challenging wilderness, why did Am Yisrael go through that? Why do we have to be 40 years in the wilderness? It was to entrench into our hearts that we should have the foundation of an awareness of the fact that Hashem takes care of us intimately, every day, all the time, not just those 40 years, but throughout history. He takes care of us. He provides for our needs. That's what we were meant to learn. We already had, from Avram Avinu, Abraham, only 400 years before, approximately, we had that inheritance. We had a tradition that Hashem is involved in our lives. God exists and He's part of our lives. They walked in the The fact that they went through an area, a section of the world, a wilderness, a midbar, a desert, no life, nothing to help them, no nearby civilizations to latch onto and to get food from, sustenance. They're there and they're alive against nature. It's absolutely miraculous that they're able to survive there. And the lesson we were meant to learn there, and that we take till today, and we need to focus on and think about and contemplate, is that Hashem took care of us then. Hashem takes care of us now. There are many people who, after davening, they read the Mon. They read the Parshas Hamon, or we know that there's an Inyan, certain times of the year, to read the Parshas Hamon, which has to do with the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu provided for us then, and He can provide for us, and will provide for us now. He's intimately involved in our lives. There's nothing that holds Hashem back from giving us our needs, even in an incredible desert. The mistake that we made then, and the mistake that we can make today, if we don't catch ourselves, is that they didn't properly believe and they felt like maybe I don't deserve it. Is Hashem in my midst? Does Hashem care about me? Am I righteous enough? Maybe not. So, I would add something that we spoke about previously. So instead of a person doing tshuva and saying, I'm going to try my best to do Hashem's will, the person says, Hashem doesn't care about me. I'm not good enough. There's a few different approaches to that. I can do tshuva, or I can say, look, I know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives a person who's not a big tzaddik what they have bitachon for. And we've talked about that also. But here, we're going with the kav, we're going with the highest level, which is, I try to be better. I try to make my relationship with Hashem better, more correct, more aligned. And in so doing, I don't have to be worried that Hashem's not going to give me what I need. Last, he brings from the Chassam Sofer, which is an amazing and interesting idea. It's a little bit counter to what we've been saying, but it's important to know that there's this kind of idea. There are different levels in bitachon, as we always speak about. There's different approaches. Do I have to be a tzaddik first or not? Chassam Sofer says you do. Passuk says, right before our passuk, fire came out and it burned and came up upon the people of Israel. Why? Because they didn't completely believe in Hashem. They didn't trust in His salvation. Right? It's like the worst fear that we have is a self-fulfilling prophecy. But what happens after that? Hashem commands the heavens that they should give forth, they should open up, the windows of the heavens should open up. Hashem gives them the manna, He gives them this amazing sustenance from the heavens. Pasuk Tamua. Says the Chassam Sofer, the pasuk is very difficult to understand. Once it says that Hashem's anger was flaring at them, so how does it say that if they've done wrong and they're not trusting Hashem, why does the pasuk immediately after say that Hashem brought upon them the man? Well, he says an important an important approach. When we want to have bitachon, but we've done wrong, what do? How do we approach this? A person who sins, let's be clear, says the Chassam Sofer, if I've done wrong, and then I trust Hashem, even though I've done wrong, I haven't done tshuva, so that's a deeper sin. It's a greater sin when I do an Aveira, and then I trust in Hashem despite my Aveira. Pasuk says in Micha chapter 3, verse 11, that although Am Yisrael was sinning, they still trusted in Hashem. Rishayim hayu, they were wicked. And they still said, I believe everything's going to be okay. I believe that God is going to take care of me. Even though I'm doing wrong. Even though I'm being punished for doing wrong, I believe it's going to be good in the end. The passuk says in Micha also, a few chapters later, it says, don't trust in the powerful one. Don't trust in Hashem. Some Sefer says, look, you have to know, it's important to know that before you trust in Hashem, you need to do your best to do tshuva. Sometimes a person can't, okay? We've talked about that. A person's supposed to also trust, even when if he can't do tshuva. But a person who could do tshuva, that is really the first step a person needs to take before he trusts in Hashem. A person needs to have to be in the right relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu first. Because when you do tshuva, and you have tshuva and ma'asim tovim, you have good deeds, and you have repented, that is as a tris, that's an armor that protects you from any negative situations. Some Sefer says you shouldn't have bitachon if you haven't done tshuva. If you don't have the armor, you shouldn't trust in Hashem. You shouldn't think, I would say better, you shouldn't think that Hashem is going to take care of you if you're not aligned with Hashem's will. So he says that's the pshat in the psukim. After Am Yisrael experienced the anger of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the fire burning, what was this experience? It was an experience of, I realize I've done wrong. I feel the flames of embarrassment. I recognize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is upset with me. So at that point, they realized they've done wrong and they didn't have Emunah, a new pshat in the passuk. They didn't have Emunah because they weren't willing to trust in Hashem before they did tshuva. But rather, what did they do? First, before having bitachon, they did tshuva. They rectified their ways. They focused on ma'asim tovim, on good deeds. So through their recognition and their experience of Hashem's wrath, and the implications of that wrath, through their first not trusting in Hashem, they recognized that they need to do tshuva, and they did tshuva. They repented. They changed their ways. What was the result? That instead of there needing to be fire and anger, everything turned around. Since they did tshuva and then they trusted in Hashem, everything opened up for them. The heavens opened. The heavens, the way is that when the heavens open, so fire and brimstone comes down upon those who are wicked. But Am Yisrael did tshuva. We repented. We changed our ways. And the result was that Am Yisrael, instead of receiving fire and brimstone, what we received was good things from the heavens. We received the man, we received miracles, because we realigned with Hashem's will. We saw the message. This is such an important thing, because how many times, how strong does the message have to be? Because Baruch Hu has been telling us, throughout history, but in the last year and a half, how many times has Hashem given us messages, especially here in Eretz Yisrael? Hashem wants us to heed the message. He wants us to do tshuva. He wants to give us good. He wants to pour down upon us everything, all the blessings. But do we heed the message? Do we see, hey, why is this happening? Are we doing tshuva? Are we repenting? So the Chasam Sefer is calling us to tshuva and saying, recognize what the message is of the troubles that we face wherever we are, whether it's the anti-Semitism in the States or whether it's the challenges here in Eretz Yisrael. We might get a pause in the fighting. We might get a pause and a respite. But Am Yisrael, and I can only talk about myself, I need to recognize the message. I need to recognize what is the anger and the fire about. It's to wake me up. It's to get me to hear, I need to be better. I need to do tshuva. And then, as the Chassam Sofer understands, then we can talk about Bitachon. We can talk about HaKadosh Baruch Hu opening up the heavens and pouring down miraculous blessings upon us. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you again next time.